These are your Unit 1B, Day 4 video notes. We are continuing to work on Standard 2A. I can rewrite and evaluate expressions. Now we are preparing to simplify square roots. In order to simplify a square root, we need to know what factors are. And factors are numbers that are multiplied to get a product. Get a product. So what that means is a factor times a factor equals a product. So the factors are the numbers that you multiply to get a certain answer, because remember, a product is the answer when you multiply. So let's look at this first one. Identify two pairs of integers that make this equation true. So we're trying to find two factors that would make this statement true. So we have to think about what are two numbers we know multiply together to equal 12. Well, 12 is an even number, so we know that it is divisible by 2. 2 times 6 is 12. Now, what you will do is, can you think of any other pairs of integers that multiply to make 12? So if you're unsure, what you could do is you could divide and see if you got whole numbers. So for example, in your calculator, if you did 12 divided by 3, you would get an answer of 4. So you know that 3 times 4 is a factor, and 1 times a number is always a factor. Now, today in class, you created factor cheat sheets. That is something that you will use when you are trying to find the factors of numbers. So after you've created this sheet, you really don't need to go back and try to figure out what the factors are. You just need to refer to that factor cheat sheet. So again, factors are two numbers you multiply to make a product. So you can see up here that each number could have multiple pairs of factors. Okay, so you can see right here we got 3 different sets of numbers that you multiply to make 12. So a number can have multiple pairs of factors. Now we have these special things called prime numbers. When a number's factors are only one in itself, we call it prime. So that means the only way to multiply that number is by multiplying it by 1. There are no other ways to get it. Okay, so you only can multiply by 1 to get the number. That would be a prime factor. So down here, we have the list of prime factors. I'll fill out the first couple, so we know that 1 times 2 is the only way to get 2 when you're multiplying. Here we have 1 times 7. That is the only way to get an answer of 7 when you're multiplying. 1 times 17. That is the only way to get an answer of 17 when you're multiplying. 1 times 3. That is the only way to get the answer of 3 when you're multiplying. So you can see the pattern here. These numbers are prime because the only way to get their answer is 1 times that number. So what you're going to do right now is you're going to pause the video and you're going to fill in the rest of these. Okay, hopefully you were able to complete these and you remembered that it was 1 times that number is equal to that. We're just looking at these prime numbers. Okay, now let's move on. These prime numbers are going to be important for the next thing that we're going to do. Okay, we are going to use prime numbers to make factor trees. So we are going to a factor tree is a tool that can be used to break down numbers. Okay, so a factor tree is a tool that can be used to break down any number into its prime right, make sure you have this in your notes, and I will explain to you what that means. So we are breaking a number down into its prime factors, and we have a list of prime factors on our factor cheat sheet and on the previous page that we just completed. So here's what you do. You start with your product or your number. Then you think of any two numbers you can multiply to make that number. Well, on the other page, we figured out that 2 times 6 is equal to 12. So when I'm looking at this, we have 12 and the two numbers that connect to 12 with this little kind of mountain. These two numbers multiply to make 12. These are factors of 12. Now our next step is if we see a prime number, we circle it. Well, 2 times 6 is 12, and 2 is a prime number, so we circle it. We know we don't have anywhere else to go on this one because we've circled our prime number. That's how we know that we're done. Now, if we go here, we have the number 6, and we have to think, can we expand that number anymore? Are there any numbers you can multiply to make 6 other than 1 times 6? And the answer is yes. And again, use your factor cheat sheet. We know that 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Well, 2 is a prime number, so we circle it, and 3 is a prime number, so we circle it. Okay? And this is a factor tree. So now I'm going to go through one, and then you'll try some on your own. So we have the number 48. I would look at my factor cheat sheet and find two numbers that I multiply to make 48. Well, I know that 6 times 8 equals 48. Okay, two things you can multiply together to make 48. Now I think to myself, is this a prime factor? Nope, because 2 times 3 is equal to 6. Now I look at both of these numbers. Are either one of these prime? Yes, they are both prime numbers, so that means I have to circle them. Next, I go to my next side, and I have the number 8. And I need to think, is 8 a prime number? No, because 2 times 4 is equal to 8. Now I look at both of these numbers, and I think to myself, are either one of these prime? And the answer is yes, 2 is prime. Go to 4. Is 4 a prime number? No, because 2 times 2 is 4. Are either of these prime numbers? Yep, 2 is a prime number, so I would go ahead and circle it. And I know now that I'm done with my factor tree because every number at the end of my little mountains that I've made is a prime number, so I am done. Then I would go ahead and I would set it up, and I would look, how many 2's do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. Then I go to my next number, 3. How many 3's do we have? 1 times 3. So this is the prime factorization of this number, and we know that 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 can also be written as 2 to the 4th power times 3. This one up here, if we looked at it, we have two 2's, so it would be 2 times 2, and then we have 1 3 times 3. So the prime factorization of this number would be 2 to the 2nd power times 3. Okay, or really we should be using this little dot to show multiplication. Okay, perfect. Now we're going to go to the next page, and you're going to try some on your own. Okay, so the first one we have is the number 42. Your job is to think of two factors you multiply to make 42 by looking at your factor cheat sheet. So think. I look, I'm like, oh, yeah, 6 times 7 is 42. All right, and then I check. Any prime numbers? Oh, yeah, 7's a prime number. So I got to circle that. Because this is a prime number, this little line has stopped. Now I go to my next one, 6. Is 6 a prime number? Nope, because it has 2 factors you can multiply other than 1 in itself. So we know that 2 times 3 is equal to 6. 2 and 3 are both prime numbers, so I need to circle that. And now I can see that I am done because the end of every line is circled. And then my prime factorization would be 2 times 3 times 7. There is no number that's repeated, so this would be the end. I've covered every single prime in this setup. All right, so your job now is to pause the video and try these 2 on your own. Please try them on your own before you come back and check your work. Okay, hopefully you completed these on your own and you got the same answer. For this one, the prime factorization is 2 times 3 times 5. And for 36, it's 2 squared times 3 squared. If you left this as 2 times 3 times 2 times 3, go ahead and make sure you change it to this. A good way to check to make sure your work is done accurately is after you have completed your prime factorization, what you can do is you can go ahead and enter this into your calculator. So if you did 2 times 3 times 5 in your calculator, you should get an answer of 30. If you did not, then you know that you've made a mistake.